Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to cut through the noise surrounding a company that really impacts how millions of us handle our money. Everything from buying coffee to running a business. We're talking about Block, Inc. That's the powerhouse behind Square and, of course, Cash App. We've just been digging into their latest investor materials, specifically their Q2 2025 investor presentation and shareholder letter. So our mission today, unpack these docs, get past the raw numbers, and pull out the really vital insights. What's happening with their recent earnings and, maybe more importantly, what they're projecting for the road ahead.
That's right. It's about more than just reporting the figures. We'll look at Block's core financial aims, how they actually did against those goals last quarter, and what their guidance for the rest of 2025 tells us about their strategy, their priorities, and, well, their expected growth. It's a chance to really understand not just what happened, but maybe why these results matter in the bigger fintech picture.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Before we get into the sort of nitty-gritty of the earnings, what are Block's main financial objectives? Like, what's their North Star beyond just making revenue?
Well, what's interesting here is their focus on a balanced approach. They actually list 4 key objectives. First, they aim to drive consistent growth while ensuring profitability. So it's not just growth for growth's sake. It's about building something sustainable long-term.
Right, profitable growth, not just scaling at any cost.
Exactly. Second, they focus on maximizing gross profit. And they specifically mention a commitment to positive gross profit retention across each ecosystem. That basically means making sure their current customers on both Square and Cash App stick around and remain valuable.
Okay, so retention is key. It's not just about getting new people in the door.
Precisely. Third, they use this framework called the Rule of 40. That's a pretty standard metric in tech now. You add the gross profit growth rate to the adjusted operating income margin. They believe they're well positioned entering 2026 on that front. A higher number signals a good balance between growth and profit.
Rule of 40. Got it on the last one.
And finally, they aim to create value for shareholders. That means a disciplined capital return strategy. So giving capital back to investors, it shows a really holistic view beyond just the top line numbers.
Okay, so those are the goals.
Yeah.
Pretty ambitious. How did they actually do against that backdrop in Q2? What were the big headlines?
Well, Block called Q2 2025 a strong second quarter. They even said they're back on offense. They accelerated their year-over-year gross profit growth to 14%, which actually beat their own guidance.
Oh, interesting. So they outperformed expectations.
Yeah. And profitability was strong, too. Adjusted operating income jumped 38% year-over-year. That delivered a healthy 22% adjusted operating income margin. Just for scale, their total gross profit for Q2 was $2.54 billion.
Wow, okay. That does sound like a strong quarter. And what about the two main pillars, Square and Cash App? How do they contribute?
Both were critical. Square's gross payment volume GPV, the total amount processed, saw growth accelerate to 10% year-over-year. And on the Cash App side, its gross profit grew a pretty robust 16% year-over-year. They mentioned it showed significant reacceleration as they exited Q2. So yeah, those two are definitely the growth engines.
Let's maybe zoom in on Square first. That's their merchant business, right?
Yeah.
Helping everyone from coffee shops to bigger companies. What were the standout numbers and, strategic moves there?
Sure. For Square, gross profit was up 11% year-over-year, hitting $1.03 billion. Total Square GPV grew 10% to $64.2 billion. But what's really compelling when you dig into that GPV is the U.S. versus international split. U.S. GPV grew 7.0%, solid. But international GPV, it accelerated massively, 25% year-over-year growth.
25%, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that suggests their global expansion is really starting to pay off.
Definitely looks like it. And it's not just about growing. They're also actively moving up market, trying to attract bigger businesses.
Right, the mid-market push. How's that going? And what products are helping them do that?
They seem to be succeeding there. GPV from those mid-market sellers, the ones doing over $500 in annual GPV, grew 17% year-over-year in Q2. And maybe more importantly, that segment now accounts for 44% of total Square GPV.
44%, that's huge. A huge shift from their early days focusing on tiny merchants.
Absolutely. It shows the platform can scale. Their priorities here include building a, quote, rock-solid and flexible platform, also providing a local experience everywhere, and, interestingly, growing with artificial intelligence.
AI for sellers. That sounds, well, genuinely new. What kind of AI tools are we talking about?
Yeah, it's pretty forward-looking. They launched the new Square handheld hardware in the U.S. back in May, and that's going international. But the AI piece is called Square AI, codenamed Goose. It's basically an AI assistant right in the Square dashboard.
Goose. Okay, what does it do?
It helps sellers understand their data instantly. Things like sales trends, top-selling items, customer spending patterns. It's about giving businesses those deep insights without needing, a dedicated data analyst.
That sounds super practical for a busy owner. Makes sense.
Mhm.
And are they landing bigger clients? Any notable partnerships?
They've been beefing up their sales teams, especially field sales, and they say they're seeing strong early returns. They mentioned signing Collectivo Coffee over 20 locations and Shane's Rib Shack, which has over 35. So making headway in QSR.
Quick service restaurants, right?
Yep. They also got Live Nation Canada as an exclusive payment partner and Midwest Vision Partners, over 70 locations there. It shows they can handle larger, multi-location businesses now. And looking ahead, they're even showing off the ability for sellers to accept Bitcoin directly via Square hardware. Rollout for that is expected later in 2025.
Bitcoin acceptance directly on the hardware.
Interesting. Okay, so Square is clearly expanding, moving up market, innovating with AI, even crypto. Let's switch gears to Cash App. They call it the financial operating system for the next generation. What's driving growth there?
Yeah, Cash App's gross profit was a real highlight, grew a strong 16% year over year to $1.5 billion in Q2. That was mostly driven by growth in Cash App Borrow, the Cash App card, and their buy now, pay later BNPL offerings. It shows it's becoming much more than just, sending money to friends.
Right, a broader set of financial tools. What metrics show that deeper engagement?
Well, a key one they highlight is gross profit per monthly transacting active. Basically, how much money they make per active user.
Yeah.
That grew 15% year over year to $87 in Q2. And they have 57 million monthly transacting actives.
57 million. Wow.
Yeah, so it's not just the user count, it's monetizing them better. We also saw inflows per transacting active grow 8% year over year to $1,338.
And a big part of that increase in inflows is
So, yeah, it really sounds like they're building a whole financial world inside Cash App. Teens, nano sellers, borrowing, spending.
that's the idea, become that indispensable financial hub, leveraging the network they've built.
Okay, and Afterpay fits into this too, right? The buy now, pay later service. Any highlights there?
Yeah, Afterpay is integrated, especially in their commerce solutions. They emphasize driving healthy consumer behavior, and the data seems to support that. Less than 1% risk loss on consumer receivables. Over 95% of gross merchandise volume, the GMV, came from returning customers.
High repeat usage.
Very high. And 96% of installments were paid on time. 98% of purchases had no late fees. So it suggests responsible usage, generally. They're also expanding their advertising platform, the Afterpay Media Network, AMN. Early results show it can drive up to 15x return on ad spend for merchants. That's potentially powerful new revenue stream.
15 times ROI on ads. Merchants will like that. Okay, so strong performance across the board, it seems. That brings us to the future. Given all this momentum, what about Q3 specifically? Any guidance there?
Yep. For Q3, they expect gross profit to grow 16% year over year to $2.60 billion. And they're targeting an 18% adjusted operating income margin, aiming for a rule of 33 in the quarter.
Okay, rule of 33 for Q3. Now, this does bring up an important point we should touch on. We've mentioned adjusted operating income and these rule of X numbers quite a bit. What should listeners keep in mind about these non-GAAP figures?
That's a really crucial point. First, Block is clear these are forward-looking statements. Based on current beliefs, actual results could differ, potentially, materially. And second, regarding those non-GAAP financial measures like adjusted operating income or adjusted EBITDA, they supplement the official GAAP results. They work by excluding certain expenses, things like amortization of acquired tech, acquisition costs, stock-based compensation.
Right, things the company feels don't reflect the core day-to-day operating performance.
Exactly. The company uses them to provide what they see as a clearer view of core operations, but it's really important for you, the listener, to understand what's being excluded. While these numbers give a useful perspective, changes in those excluded items could significantly impact the overall GAAP results. It's one lens, not the whole picture.
Good clarification. Okay, we've definitely done a deep dive into Block's Q2 2025 results and their outlook. It seems really clear they're focused on that balance. Aggressive growth, yes, but also profitability. Leaning hard on product innovation, expanding both Square and Cash App, and making strategic moves into new markets and services.
Indeed. And if you sort of connect the dots, Block's strategy seems to be about creating these indispensable financial operating systems, one for businesses, one for individuals. They're not just chasing user numbers anymore. They're driving value by deepening engagement, integrating more and more services, and just constantly innovating to meet what seems like the evolving needs of a very diverse customer base.
So what does this all mean for you listening? As Block keeps building out these ecosystems, pushing into AI for sellers, higher borrowing limits, maybe even Bitcoin payments becoming more common, how might the way you manage your money or how small businesses operate keep changing with companies like Block at the forefront? Will these digital financial hubs eventually become truly universal? Definitely something to mull over until our next deep dive.
Paychecks.